Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Joining me today, thank you so much for taking time. I'm going to give you five key things that when you think about the future of leadership are going to be critically important for you to focus on as a leader or a team leader who has people on your team who are looking to grow into that space. As always, I'm going to show you the embrace framework. That's what everything that I do in my coaching and everything that I do in the people that I work with is grounded in. The embrace framework for leadership truly is the most important way for leaders to get out of that space of feeling stuck, feeling frustrated, feeling stagnant, feeling as though that they're maybe not making the impact that they could, or for those emerging leaders that are trying to find their place in the leadership space. This framework will truly help you if you align your behaviors with empathy, having the right mindset, focusing on your personal brand as a leader. You have a strong sense of resilience. You are able to gain authority through that influence that you are able to build. You then have more capabilities to make it greater impact of the work that you do. And ultimately, you can lead a more effective, productive team. So today I'm going to get into 5 key areas, as I mentioned. The first one is that very first word in the Embrace framework, which is empathy. When we think about leadership in 2024, 2025, we are continuing to see a trend across all platforms that empathetic leaders are the ones that are making the most impact, not only on organizations, but on the teams that they lead. When you listen to any of the leadership experts out there, the Simon Sinek's, the Brene Browns, the Brendan Burchards, the John Maxwell's, they all talk about empathy as a key component as a leader. And it's that leadership style that empathy is not a weakness. Empathy does not mean that you're being soft. Empathy doesn't mean that you aren't being a strong and effective leader. Being an empathetic leader simply means that you are connecting with your team in a way and connecting with your teams in a way that shows that you are a person. You're not just a position. It shows that you are connected with them in such a manner that they are able to feel as though they can be themselves because they feel as though you recognize who they are. You recognize some of the things they may be struggling with or struggled with in the past, and you're able to put yourself in that space to where you can actually be there for them, help them to move past where they may be stuck or struggling. Really, that empathetic leader is that human element to the work that we do. And that's really what it boils down to. We don't have to make it super complicated. Sometimes when people hear the word empathy, they do feel like, oh, that means that I've got to be soft. That means that I have to be, super sensitive. It's not necessarily that. It really is just more about being aware of not only yourself, but also being aware of others and leveraging that emotional intelligence that all solid, strong leaders have and lean into in order for them to truly be what people need as a leader and not just a manager. The better that you can be at growing your empathy, just being more mindful of it, just being more aware of being empathetic, you will see that your teams will end up being stronger. They'll be more connected. You'll find that you're able to have different conversations with the people who are on your team because they now can see you in a different light. They now feel that you can lead them in a different way. And that can be challenging for some people. That can be intimidating to some leaders. But I tell you, the more that you can lean into empathy, the more you can learn about it, the more you can focus on it, the more that you can implement having empathetic leadership style, you are going to see tremendous growth in the connections in your team. The next thing I want to talk about is really closely tied to that, but it's leading authentically. Be who you are and not necessarily a representative of who you think others want to be. My first true leadership role, I was about 27 years old. And I was with a company, and it was in television broadcasting. I was working on the production side. And the leadership that I had experienced up to that point, it was my first real job out of college. I had been there for a number of years, had built a good reputation, had an opportunity to step into a mid-level, kind of low-level, mid-level manager role. The examples that I had seen in leaders that really stuck out to me were kind of two diametric opposites. One leadership style that I experienced was a very autocratic leader, someone who was very demanding, someone who was very much do it this way, do it the right way, do it my way, all the time, get it done, no excuses. A really strong, in I put that in air quotes, a really strong approach to leadership that didn't really have a lot of the human element that was invested in it. And so that set a tone for the mood, that set a tone for the culture, that set a tone for any time we were working with this individual. It was just a tense workplace. We got a lot of things done. We got a lot of things accomplished. Productivity was high. The work experience, though, was something that was often very draining, very stressful, very challenging. On the other side, there was another leader who was probably on the opposite side of that. They were a lot more just kind of, loose, but also very stressed because wanted everything to be perfect. So didn't have the same type of kind of on your neck type of approach, but everything was stressed. Everything had to be perfect. Everything was kind of micromanaged to a point where it was exhausting to be in that environment. It was exhausting to work with that individual because it was just so difficult to have any space. And so when I stepped into a leadership position, my main goal was to not be either one of those. My main goal was just kind of go right down the middle. And I thought if I just was easygoing, if I was laid back, if I didn't put too many demands on people, if I didn't hold people really accountable to things, if I stepped in and did a lot of the work with them or for them, then that would make me that great leader that I was seeking to have that I didn't necessarily see previously. What ended up happening, though, was I was doing way too much people pleasing and not doing any leading. And so while a lot of those people may have liked me, the level of respect wasn't there. And then since the level of respect wasn't there, I wasn't able to truly have any influence on the people that were on my team that I was leading. And so as a result, when things would go wrong, when there were challenges, when there were frustrations, it never got discussed, and it ended up eroding my ability to have influence. It eroded my ability to be able to influence, to make connections. It eroded my ability to actually lead in those moments. And so when I got some feedback that was really tough, it was surprising to me. But looking back, I understand it was because I wasn't being authentic. And then as my career grew and I learned more about emotional intelligence, I learned more about self-awareness, I learned more about being the leader that people need to be rather than managing their tasks or trying to be their best friend. It allowed me to step into a space where I could have those really strong personal relationships with people because that's who authentically I was as a leader, and at the same time guide their work and hold them accountable and give them steps that they needed to do to achieve. It allowed me to really separate being trying to be someone's friend and trying to be someone's boss to a place where I was authentically leading from a place that was genuine to me. And the relationships that were built truly allowed me to lead in those spaces. It truly allowed me to have the level of influence that I wanted. It truly allowed me to have the level of influence that then transitioned to authority, to where I was sought out for my perspectives. I was sought out to give my opinions. I was sought out for influence in spaces that I hadn't been before because I leaned into authenticity. The next area is focusing on influence. You've heard me say that a few times already today. Focus on influence instead of control. When we look at creating influence and sustainable influence, there's a formula here that I want to share with you. Development plus empowerment plus feedback equals influence. So let me break that down for you. Development means how are you investing in the development of the people that are on your team, whether that be making sure that they have the right tools and resources to be successful, whether that means ensuring that they have opportunities for their own professional development, career development, whether that means that you're giving them stretch assignments and giving them opportunities to do things beyond their daily work. That's all under that umbrella of development. Then empowerment is actually letting people go out and do things that they haven't done before and letting them either succeed or fail, but don't let them completely fall flat on their face all by themselves, but empower them to do the things that are going to be able to demonstrate them putting that development into practice. Empowerment truly looks like I'm going to give you the tools, I'm going to give you the resources, I'm going to give you the opportunities to go out and make it your own, go out and do something that you haven't done before. And I'm not going to be all up in your space, not going to be over your shoulder doing it. I'm going to empower you to do things the way that you best see fit, because I first focused on development, because I first focused on letting you develop and giving you the opportunity to develop. Now I'm going to empower you to go out and put that into practice. And then the most critical piece of that is the feedback that then you give, right? And feedback does not necessarily mean correction. Feedback doesn't necessarily just have to be a pat on the back, oh, you did good. Feedback, genuine, true feedback is something that's a gift. Genuine, true feedback is something that you invest in as a leader. You invest the time, you invest the energy to give someone true, genuine feedback that's going to be helpful to them, whether it be positive or whether it be constructive. All feedback is valuable. And whenever you're giving feedback, I always encourage people to say, I care enough about sharing this with you because I think it can be beneficial to you. And that's really what feedback is you are giving your perspectives, you're giving your opinion, you're giving your observations with the hope and goal that it is going to be impactful and meaningful to the person that you're giving that feedback to, and then letting them grow in that space that you've created for them through that feedback. And then finally, all of those things, when you put them together, when you have the development that you've invested into somebody, when you give them the opportunity to then act on that development and empower them to go out and do things the way that they want to do them based off the information that they have and based off of the parameters that are established, but really letting them do it, then giving them feedback on that experience, that's how you gain influence, right? Because you've then allowed people to grow, you've allowed people to develop, you've allowed people to try, you've allowed people to do. And through that influence, and then you give them feedback, you give them perspectives on what they've done, then that influence truly is how you can continue to double down, you can continue to grow, you can continue to expand what then becomes authority. I always talk about authority, and I've shared the matrix that first it starts with trust. And then through trust, you gain influence. And then through influence, you're granted authority. And then after you've been granted authority isn't something that you can take, it's something that others give to you. Then you see opportunities start to exist for yourself and for others. But it follows that flow, and influence is such a key part of that. So this is that formula that I want you to think about when it comes to influence: development plus empowerment plus feedback. That's how you can really start to gain influence. And then the next area, I told you I was going to talk to you about 5. Number 4 is really all about authority. And authority and power are different. And I just kind of walked you through that matrix, walked you through that flow from influence to authority. And really, authority is you being able to leverage all of the things that helped you to gain greater influence on a much broader platform. When I think about authority, when I think about my career, I've had opportunities to work with everyone from frontline staff to people in the C-suite. And every time that I've been invited into those C-suite conversations, it's been built off of the work that I have done previously and the reputation that was established through the influential work that I was able to do. Right? It's never been on a specific task. It's never been on a specific project. It's never been on a specific outcome. But every time that I have been granted authority, it's always been based off of the influence that I was able to gain with others. And through that influence that I was able to gain with others, that really opened up the doors for me to be invited in to places where my authority or my perspectives, my opinions, my experiences were sought out. And then I was able to lean into those areas, was able to lean into those things to then provide that on a greater platform. And so when I talk about authority and power are two different things, right? I always talk about you wield power, but you're granted authority. You can leverage authority. Authority allows you to get into spaces that you necessarily wouldn't be invited into. And even if you're invited into some of those spaces of authority, then if you don't have influence, then it's not really going to be as impactful. People aren't going to listen to you as much because you haven't established and built up that credibility that's necessary. That credibility is very, very rare. That credibility for you to be invited into spaces of authority, it's extremely rare that is only transactional, right? Transformational work really helps you not only to, again, gain that influence, but transformational work will get you authority. It will allow for people to see you in a different light, because then they'll start to think, if they were able to transform things on the level that they were on previously, what happens if we expand that territory? What happens if we expand those opportunities? And authority gives you the space to do that. So start with trust, then build through influence to be granted authority to be able to make impact on a larger, broader scale. And then the fifth thing is really be what you want to see. When I think about the future of leadership, and again, that's what this is all about. The future of leadership is built on that foundation of empathy. It's built on the foundation of authenticity. It's built on the foundation of influence. Being what you want to see is going to be how you can really make that larger, again, impact on others. But you have to lead by example. People need to see, especially people that you're most closely connected with, people that you're leading, people that are on your teams. People want to see you. They want to see what you're doing. And I talk to leaders all the time about this. I say, regardless of what you're doing, people are watching you because you're the leader. So you have to be what you want to see. You want to make sure that you're demonstrating the behaviors that you want. You want to make sure that you're always operating in the way that you would want people to operate when you're not around, right? They talk about that's the kind of the true test of integrity is, how do you act when there's nobody watching? Well, as a leader, everybody's watching all the time. So it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you are being what you want to see. You're leading in a way that will demonstrate that vulnerability and also that transparency about the ways that you've grown, the ways that you developed, and the things that you're doing help people to see that. And the things that you're doing help people to really have that confidence that if I do these things, if I model the behavior that I'm seeing, then that's what the leader is expecting of me. That's what is supposed to be happening. When I work with organizations and we're doing culture work, right? I always talk to the leaders about that. I always talk to the leaders about how can you expect a culture that you aren't consistently modeling? How conscious are you about modeling the culture that you want to see? How consistent are you about navigating conflict the way that you want it to be navigated? How consistent are you about doing the little things the way that you would want for them to be done, right? It's really hard for you to have a high standard for the people on your teams if you're sloppy. Like, it just doesn't work that way, because from a standpoint of not being what you want to see, then people are going to start to see, well, it's okay for me to take shortcuts here or there. It's okay for me to talk to certain people a certain way. It's okay for me to handle conflicts with my peers, with my team in a certain way, because that's what I'm seeing my leader do. There's so many examples of that, but there's also so many positive examples of people who were influenced, there's that word again, that were influenced by watching the behavior of their leaders, watching their leaders invest in them, right? When a leader is investing in you, and you're, let's say that you're in a middle tier of leadership, and you see that senior leaders are first investing in themselves and then investing in you, what are you likely to do for your teams? You're more likely to invest in them. Here is a secret that I tell leaders all the time. The more that you invest in your teams, the more that you develop your teams, the more opportunities you create for your teams to do things like stretch assignments, to do things like, taking on different projects, to do things they haven't done before through that path of influence that I shared earlier, the easier your job becomes, because it allows you to then focus on the things that you need to be focused on. The stronger your teams are, the easier your job becomes. But your teams don't get stronger just by hiring strong people or keeping strong people in positions that don't allow them to grow, but make you look good. Strong teams are led by consistent, confident, authentic, empathetic leaders who build consistent, authentic, empathetic leaders throughout their organization. That's how strong teams grow. That's how strong organizations continue to get stronger and stronger and continue to get bigger and more successful. And then finally, I wanted to talk to you just about resilience, because this is the other kind of key thing that when we kind of break everything down, we recognize that everything is harder than it has been in the past, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And it's really a lot about mindset, right? Having that robust mindset that can layer on with the skills that you have as a leader that allows you in some of these challenging times where you face things like change, you face things like, obstacles that you run up against, when you face things that are more difficult, it seems, to navigate around, having that strong, resilient team, having that strong sense of resilience that you have built as a leader, that's what will help to carry you through. And that's what your teams, again, are looking to you to model. When we talk about the future of leadership, we don't know what the crystal ball is telling us about how things are going to shake out over the next weeks, months, and years. But here's what I can tell you. Here's what I do know about the rest of 2024. And as we're looking into 2025, there will continue to be opportunities for you to grow. There will continue to be opportunities for your team to grow. There are going to be a number of changes that are going to come, not only in the work that you do, but also the experiences that you create. And so as a leader, the more resilient that you can be, the more resilience that you can demonstrate, and then the more that you can show and demonstrate that to your teams, the easier it will be for you to navigate through those paths, through that space of confidence, through that space of authenticity, through that space of influence. Really, the future of leadership comes down to those key areas. The future of leadership is going to be built on the backs of empathetic leaders that are able to demonstrate that connection with their teams, where they can show that they are a person, they're not just a position. They can lead authentically who they are and lead from a space of awareness, lead from a space of emotional intelligence, lead from a space of connection. They can focus on growing their influence and not trying to just grasp and leverage control over others. They're going to be able to be granted that authority to be able to make a broader impact on their organizations and on their communities by being who they want to see, by demonstrating and exhibiting not only the mindset, but the behaviors that they want to see their teams implement. And finally, being strong and robust and resilient, being able to withstand the challenges that organizations and individuals are going to face. But you can do it if you focus on those other 4 and 5 things first. And again, I'm always going to take you back to that embrace framework, because that embrace framework is everything that you need in order to be a successful leader. Hey, I want to thank you again for taking the time today. Have a couple of things that I'm going to drop in LinkedIn that will probably carry over to the other social platforms as well. I'm going to go ahead and give you another opportunity to take that leadership assessment that I have available. It's free. 12 questions, answer those questions, and you get a full scorecard report on areas that you are being successful at, as well as areas that there are opportunities. Have gotten really, really good feedback. Had about 35 people take it so far over the past couple of weeks, and the responses have been phenomenal with the insights that they're getting. So I'll give you an opportunity to take that. And as always, would love to connect with you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. You see my LinkedIn profile there down at the bottom of the screen. Send me a direct message. Would love to connect with you. Hop on a quick discovery call. See if there are ways that I can help to support your growth or help to support the growth of the teams that are within your organization. Have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time.